Voltron fans, this is Marc Morell, your host for Let's Voltron, the official Voltron podcast. We're here for another exciting podcast where we do a review, a preview, all those types of things. And I have a special guest here with me right now. I have Shannon Muir. Welcome back, Shannon.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
So this is going to be a little bit of a strange podcast because Shannon's going to be on for the first half and my co-host Greg is going to be on for the second half. And we're going to try to bring it all together about the same subjects. So thank you for joining me in this experiment.
No problem.
So as most of you know, Shannon is a guest at VoltCon this year.
That's correct.
So we are excited that everybody who's attending VoltCon is going to get to see Shannon and Greg this year, and you won't get to see me.
Which we are not excited.
Not excited about, right? But Shannon and Greg are gonna, handle a lot of panels while they're at VoltCon and everything, and we're going to do a little bit of the preview of those said panels because we've already talked about those panels when we did our VoltCon 2022 preview with the organizers Kevin Clark and Patrick and Savannah O'Connor. So we've already talked about this just a little bit, but we're going to go a little bit more of a deep dive, but we're going to keep it, as a like a preview so that we won't get too far into it. And those people at VoltCon are going to be the ones that are going to enjoy it the most. Okay.
Yep. Basically tease it out. And so those of you who are coming, and I know several people have already written me, like, want to know more about what's going on. Well, this is going to be that tease, folks.
Yes. So I also have a special thing that I shared with Shannon over the summer, and that was San Diego Comic-Con. So
we were both there.
Yeah, so we got to see each other at San Diego Comic-Con, and we're going to talk a little bit about what were the Voltron aspects of San Diego Comic-Con. Not much this year, but still a little bit there to talk about.
Definitely. Yeah, you were there the whole weekend, and I mean, you were there the whole time, I should say, and I was there for just the weekend because of logistics that were going on. So maybe you should go first, and I'll join in with you when we get closer to when we actually met up.
Okay. All right. So the thing I want to talk about San Diego Comic-Con is this is the first San Diego Comic-Con that they've had in 3 years because they had 2 years where they didn't do it at all because of the pandemic.
And then that was, the logistics that went into that were something else. But surprisingly, at least for those of us, like my husband and I, who got there by Saturday, it seemed pretty seamless. I can't speak for day one, and that's where I kind of like Marc to come in. Right.
So we were there from Wednesday preview night on. So we got to see every single day. We got to see how the crowds were and everything. And I got to say, it felt like San Diego Comic-Con was back. But you did notice some things, okay? There were some canceled panels and things like that. It seemed like it was either COVID related or it was either related to the fact that they didn't want to bring the full casts in for some of these shows and some of these panels and things like that. So we did see more canceled panels as a result of that, but it wasn't that bad. We had a number of good things that happened, big ones. I mean, like Marvel and DC. So DC had the Black Adam and the Shazam all in Hall H. And then Marvel had their, basically they went over phase 4, phase 5, and phase 6 of all their movies. So you're going to get to see, and their TV shows. So you're going to get to, see all that kind of stuff coming up in the next several years. So those are pretty big ones. And then, of course, there's a bunch of other TV shows that had panels associated with Comic-Con, and then some animated stuff as well. There was a new Green Lantern movie and a couple of other things that were shown at Comic-Con. So it was good to see that. Of course, Voltron wasn't really, doing much at Comic-Con. There were a few things on the vendor floor. So we can definitely talk about that together because we were both on the vendor floor and we both saw what they had. So when I did meet Shannon, that was on Sunday.
Actually, yeah, it's true. We had come in, my husband and I, on Saturday, and then you met up with us on Sunday. And on Saturday, my husband and I had missed everything we're seeing and the way that it worked out, because we had a few times to go in and out from the exhibit floor before the end of the afternoon. And so we meet Mark and Kim for lunch, and they're like, "Did you see this? Did you see this?" I'm like, "No." So when we went back, we split up again for a little bit so we could go find all the things and then meet up with them again. Glad we did. One of them was definitely worth seeing in person.
So the cool thing is we reconnected again with our friends at Han Cholo. So I got to talk to Brandon Schoolhouse, who's the CEO of Han Cholo, and they are still doing great. They had, as a special SDCC exclusive for Voltron, they had the Blazing Sword pendant. But they had all of the other stuff as well, you know, the rings and the pendants and everything, and the patches too.
Yeah, by the time we had swung by Sunday afternoon, they had sold out of most everything. I think there were only, I remember the giant ring, the necklace I have of Green Lion, and I think about only 3 other things that were left.
Right. So it was great to get back in touch with them after 3 years, you know. And then we moved to the back corner of the room where the Bandai Namco booth had a bunch of things going on there, including one of them, the Blitzway Voltron.
And for those of us like me who have neither the storage room nor the income to actually see that in person, those folks that are getting it, I think you're in for a treat. Some of you already have it, but now I know what everybody is talking about, including what Marc has.
So this is the Blitzway Voltron. Comes with the shield and the blazing sword, and you can see it's pretty hefty, okay, because it's mostly die cast and partly plastic, okay. And I'm not going to do it right now because the batteries are a little bit cumbersome to try to use.
Okay.
But the eyes light up in all of the lions, which includes Voltron's head.
Wow.
So that happens. And then at the same time, it comes with this really big base. So can you see that base? Okay.
Yeah, okay. So you actually do get that. It wasn't just something that we saw for the display in the case. That's cool.
The cool thing about this base is it puts all of the weapons inside.
Good storage.
Yeah, and it also includes an extra Voltron face. And then, of course, you get all the pilots, too. And the nice thing about this is, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's little magnets in each corner. See, there's a little magnet in each corner so that when I put this thing back on, it easily goes back on because it's magnetized.
Good planning. Yep.
So I'm going to talk at a little bit more length about the Blitzway Voltron with Greg when we have Greg on later in this episode. It was interesting to talk to the people at the Blitzway booth because we talked directly to the guy who put together the display and about how much fun he had doing that and how much he enjoys it, because one part of the display has Voltron fully together, and then the other part of the display had it in lion's form. And I love the lion's form because it goes, each lion goes on its own pedestal, basically,
right,
that is attached to the base. So it's like a very hard plastic, almost acrylic. and it holds on to each of the lions in the back of the lion. And so the whole thing has them spread out like they're flying up to form Voltron. And each of the acrylic pieces has the color of that lion, and it's like it's stream, you know. So the green lion has the green stream, the yellow lion has the yellow stream, and the black lion has a white stream.
So just to clarify, that was also in the package you have?
Yep.
Wow. Because that was one of the things that was the big attention getter for me. And again, just like when you hold the base, I thought maybe that's something they just did for Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting that.
And the cool part also was that they had not only the lion pilots inside each of the lions, but you got another version of them standing where you could put them standing on top of the lion, just like at the end of the show. So that was the Blitzway booth. So we saw Han Cholo, we saw Blitzway, and then we saw a bunch of other places where there was Voltron art that was done by either artists that had a booth there or the artists in an artist alley. So we saw all that. Did you see anything different Voltron wise?
No.
Okay.
No, I think you hit all the high points.
Okay. So it was good to see that Voltron was even represented at San Diego Comic-Con this year, because there's really nothing Voltron going on right now. We do know that in maybe a year or two, you know, depending on how script writing goes and how, you know, productions, you know, getting set up and timed and all that kind of stuff, we may be seeing Voltron at San Diego Comic-Con again as a panel.
Yeah, usually it seems to be, to get those slots anymore, that you have to have something to show.
Right.
When it comes to a movie or a TV show, like all the examples that you named earlier from Marvel and DC.
Yeah, they usually won't bring a panel together unless they have at least a teaser, you know, and they wouldn't just normally bring it together to show like concept art or something like that. That just wouldn't be enough.
Because there's so much competition for so little slots.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So so that's basically San Diego Comic-Con. It was great to get back there again. It looks like it's going to go back to full swing every year again. And of course, you'll have to deal with hotel apocalypse and getting badges and all the fun things that people love about it.
For us, it was a little different in that for years we had been going to the same hotel. We didn't go to the hotel lottery or any of that. We would regularly go to Old Town and Trolley Inn, but you had to basically reserve your space 365 days in advance. Like when you were there, you reserved next year.
Mm-hmm.
And with that chain broken, it was like, ouch. So we were actually, at the end of the day, what we wound up doing was we were able to be in one of the Comic-Con hotels where I happened to be a member of their frequent reward program. And so I was able to get in that way. They fortunately still had a few rooms that way, which surprised me, because usually anybody who signs on as a con hotel has nothing. So
Right.
I considered myself very fortunate that we worked it out to see you at all.
Yeah, and it was nice because the shuttle was right there at your hotel, and you could take the shuttle in and then get dropped right back off at your hotel. So that was nice. And
it was very good to see both of you, because since it worked out the way it did, that you're not going to be at VoltCon in October, it was like,
right.
That was how Kevin and I felt, even with all the other stuff going on. We have to see Marc and Kim. It was nice to see the other stuff, but it was like you and Kim were the real reason that we wanted to go. And if for some reason you hadn't have gone, we probably seriously would have canceled ourselves and not.
Wow.
So that was how it was being discussed.
I
think highly of you.
Thank you. So it was great to see you. And of course, we'll have many other opportunities in the next few years. So
I'm confident.
we're looking forward to that. So why don't we talk a little bit about VoltCon now, because
Sure.
that's coming up October 8th and 9th. And you have a panel that you've been putting together specifically for VoltCon. So why don't we talk about that one? What's it called?
Sure. It's called From Days of Long Ago or Not. That is the question. And basically, there have been in varying versions of the Voltron storyline different explanations for Voltron's origin, whether it's the 80 series, the comic books, obviously all the way down to Legendary Defender, and some like Voltron Force add to the legend, but yet don't deal with anything prior to the start of the series, which is interesting in and of itself. I mean, Voltron Force is kind of an interesting one because in that case they kind of add around it. They go back, but it doesn't entirely. You can't sit there and go, oh, this goes with this and this goes with this. And one of the things that inspired me to want to do this panel at all is I remember watching the original show, and it goes back to the same root concepts of why I ended up doing the star map in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Because my household, my dad was nice in this way, was one of the early adopters of the VCRs. And so because we couldn't always get home from school on time, we taped all the episodes and we kept them.
Wow.
And watched them and rewatched them.
Wow.
I'm saying it that way because I know, kind of not really what you ought to do, but that is a lot where that came from. And so along the way of being able to watch them that many times, not only was I trying to figure out where all the planets went, there became, as writer in me, I knew as young as about 10, 11 years old that I wanted to write. I didn't know what yet. So as the writer side of me was looking for all the questions, why is this here? Why is this? And of course, I wasn't completely, I think I probably knew in the back of my head, having grown up in Japan, that it was a dubbed show. Or maybe it's the fact that I did grow up in Japan. It didn't connect as obviously to me as it did to a lot of people. And so I'm sitting there trying to figure out, well, where's this? Why is this? Why didn't you explain this? And we know now that they were having to rush through a very tight timeline to explain things, put words in mouths, all this other stuff.
Right.
But now that you step back and you look at it as a whole, it's like, oh, that would have been nice to know. Usually, especially once the original episodes were made for Lion Voltron, they
Mhm.
actually wound up raising more questions than answering things. And in some cases, it felt like they were trying to answer things, such as the one episode that alludes to Alfor and Zarkon's final battle in the Valley of Zohar. But it does answer stuff there, but it leaves another question at the same time. And so the way that the panel is going to be structured is walking through the various origins with more emphasis on the television side, because I have more knowledge of that,
Mhm.
and looking at what is there, and every now and then raising tidbits of question. Why is this? Either why was this left unanswered, or why does this seem to contradict this? And the key thing in doing this is it's all out of respect. It's not that I'm wanting to nitpick and say, well, this is bad or they should have done this better. It's just kind of, here's the reality of what we have. And I think it's important because I know that fan fiction is even more a thing among the Voltron community than probably it ever was.
Mhm.
But even from early on, when we all first came on the internet in the 90s, there was a certain amount of that going on in various ways. Whether it was there was a group of folks that were kind of creating a role playing scenario for the next generation who I interacted with for a while till I just didn't have the time professionally to do that. And there
Right.
was always that drive to want to tell more stories. And I think part of that was motivated by the fact that the original series left questions unanswered. It's going to be one of those tricks with this panel. Believe it or not, in everything I'm saying, I'm actually speaking vague enough where I don't think I'm giving too much away.
Well, that's good.
But no, you think she's running on and on. There's a lot I am not telling you.
Well, that's
For
great.
sure. The one thing I will say up front is it's tough to put VLD, Legendary Defender, in this panel because their whole way of the way they wrote their mega arc was all about answering these questions.
Mhm.
So it will naturally get the least coverage in the panel. And I want to have that out there just for anybody who goes or doesn't go. It's not loving Legendary Defender any less. It's just the reality is that was the mission they set out to do.
Right.
So most of this will be on the older series from the 80s by the nature of how it's structured.
Right.
Actually, it makes me think of a meme that I saw, I don't know if it was today or last week, but it was a pie chart that said transformation sequence. There was a large amount of it. Then fighting, I think, is the other one, large amounts of it. Then plot development and character development have these two little bitty slivers in them. And I'm like, well, yeah, there's a certain amount of truth to that. And so because of that, I think a lot of the panels that have been at VoltCon or even similar conventions tend to talk about the technical and those kind of aspects of it because that's the majority of what it is. Now, if you come in with me, because my nature is storyteller, you're going to be getting the little slivers, the plot and the character. Expect that for your hour. I will say that up front.
That's great. So I know Greg comes from a slightly different, angle usually when he does his stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how both of you interact on that at the same time.
Exactly. The thing that he brings to it is the analytical ability to ask questions. And that's one of the things I think where instead of just always stating, where we're also wanting to encourage a little bit of probing and thought around these mysteries or missing pieces, I think will lend itself very well. I really do.
He's got a certain curiosity that wants to know as much as possible about something, with all the things that you have given to you. What do we know about this? So that'll be good to find that out. So I actually look forward to seeing, hopefully somebody will be able to tape these.
That's what I'm hoping too, since we don't have Kim.
You don't have Kim, right? So I'm hoping somebody will be able to tape these and we'll be able to see it all ourselves. So that's good. Okay, so we're looking forward to that panel. I also wanted to let people know that I'm working on a panel as well, even though I won't be there. We're talking all about the Castle of Lions and all aspects of the Castle of Lions. So you'll get a little taste of the Castle of Lions from all the shows. You might even get a little bit from the comics. You'll definitely get a little bit from merchandise and things like that have come out with the Castle of Lions, because there's a bunch. And you'll also get ideas about what makes it the central command center for the Voltron force and how it adapts with the Voltron force. So I know everybody's seen it. So there's the castle when it's just sitting there, and then it's the castle as a ship. So you're going to get to see both aspects of that. So across all the shows. So we'll be filling up a whole hour just based on the Castle of Lions. So I look forward to going over that, and we'll show a few picture teasers of both Shannon and my panel. So you'll get to see a couple of pictures based on the origins of Voltron, and you'll get to see a couple of pictures based on the Castle of Lions as a preview in this episode. So there you go.
All right.
So anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to sitting back, and this particular panel, when we were brainstorming, I was like, yeah, I mean, the Castle of Lions, we tend to talk about the lions themselves. We tend to talk about the giant robot. But when it comes to Lion Voltron, the castle is key to everything. I mean, obviously Voltron's number one, but the castle is so much a part of, again, the story, that it makes perfect sense to give it center stage like this. I mean, it was one of those things like, no brainer. Can we do that one?
Yeah, I think it's almost like a character all by itself, because what would Voltron be without the Castle of Lions? Would it be as interesting? Would it be as fun? Would it be as exciting, action filled? Would it have as much about the lore of Voltron? Would it have as much about Voltron's origins? How does the Castle of Lions tie into all of that? So yeah, I think it would be a completely different show without the Castle of Lions.
And I'm speaking vaguely because I have not seen any slides of yours at the time of this taping, but because we were just talking about, I don't touch it anywhere in Origins because you mentioned this, but because we're talking about character and we're talking about all this, how the castle is portrayed in each show and how it is used influences the tone and feel of each show. It really does.
Oh yeah.
And so, again, without getting too spoilery there, for you telling even me anything, I look forward to finding out those answers. I told you I like questions.
Yeah. So believe it or not, the Castle of Lions can bring out a lot of emotion in a viewer. So there's different things that happen with the Castle of Lions over the different shows that really affect you, and in one way or another.
I think, wow. I'm just trying to get my head around it, because last year when I came for the first time after not being able to come in 2020 and all the stuff that had emotionally led up to that, even though I'm on the VIP list for this one, my hope personally is that I will be able to take in all aspects and completely enjoy it, better interact with people. That's not to say I didn't enjoy it last year, but when there's a certain amount of emotional baggage that's coming with you, walking into all that, I mean, it was just amazingly emotionally overwhelming. And I don't know if some of you may have even picked that up, those that saw the special that we did after VoltCon, where I'm generally in a room full of a lot of people. I'm few words anyway, and when I did talk on that one, it was just sort of still deer in headlights bit. If you had told 13-year-old me that this is where everything would have ended up, I wouldn't have believed you for a minute. And what matters to me is how welcoming and how helpful everybody was to me. And I'm looking forward to much the same this year. And again, Mark, uh, sorry that everybody else won't get to see you in person. Glad I got to at least once this year. And like you said, you know, hopefully there will be many, many more chances for us and others to get to see you. But the reason that you're not going to be there, family is important. And whether
Sure.
it's family like this, where you're grown up together, or you're, in this case, you know, raise kids, have bonds, or a family like the convention family of VoltCon.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Going to VoltCon is
yeah,
like going home because that's your other family. So it's always nice. I've always enjoyed it. So that's going to do it for this half of the podcast. And I want to thank Shannon for joining me for this half. And we look forward to the second half with Greg Tyler. So thank you, Shannon.
thank you again. Hope to see you soon.
All right. Take it easy.
You too.
And now I'd like to welcome my co-host, Greg Tyler. Welcome back, Greg.
Hey, I'm a little late to the party. How's it going?
So this is a little bit of a different style to our normal podcast, because in a normal podcast, we all be together at once.
Right.
For the purposes of this one, we started off with the first half with Shannon, and now we get the second half with Greg Tyler.
Whoa, that's weird. Well, I'm sorry to let everyone down for the second half. No, I'm kidding. It's great to be back with you, Mark, as always, and love being on the podcast. We just had a bit of a scheduling issue, so glad we could both make it on for this podcast with Shannon and me. So I sounds like you had a good conversation with her.
Oh yes, we did a little bit of a review of San Diego Comic-Con, and then we did a little bit of a preview of VoltCon with the two panels that we were both working on. And then
Okay.
we're gonna also talk with both of you about this this Blitzway Voltron.
Oh, so you've already had a chat with her about it then?
Yeah, just a
Okay.
little one.
Okay,
I
this
figured,
is Blitzway Part 2. Okay.
yeah, this is the meat and potatoes of the Blitzway, because we'll get into a lot more details with
Okay.
your. Okay.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan, man.
Yep. So we are going to get a little bit of a preview of the panel you've been working on for VoltCon as well, because you and Shannon are going to be presenting which panels together. Can you tell us which panels Shannon are doing
Well,
together?
how much we're going to overlap is a little bit to be determined. I expect that we'll probably both be on stage or at least participating in each of the four panels to some extent or another. How much each of us will be involved in each presentation is a bit up in the air, except that Shannon is certainly taking point on the Origins panel that I'm sure she mentioned.
Right.
And I'll be taking the lead on this panel that I'm about to give a bit of a teaser for. And then, of course, we have the Castle of Lions presentation that you are preparing, and we're very, very grateful that you're doing that. How we're going to divide and conquer, that's up in the air. And then we have a fourth feature with, was that mentioned? Was that called out when you chatted with
Sterling?
Okay, so yeah, the Steve Sterling interview. And so
Yes.
how we conduct that is a little bit up in the air as well, at least according to my understanding. Shannon may have a different opinion, and I'm sure we'll hash it out between now and then. Yeah, so very much looking forward to it, as with last year, and we will definitely be missing you, Mark. But you'll be there in spirit, and hopefully on Sunday, if we can figure out a way to work something out virtually.
Yes.
So
We're
yeah,
still working on that.
all right, well, good deal. So did you want to see a preview of the panel then? Is that where
Yeah.
we're at?
Let's
Okay.
talk about Die Rugger.
Yes. Yes. So let me share my screen. It's going to look a little similar to the Vehicle Team Voltron panel that I ran last year, but the subject matter is a little broader. Can you see it now?
Yes, that looks
Okay.
awesome.
Well, thank you. It's called to those who are listening and can't see this. The cover slide has a picture of Die Rugger with the blade with the Die Rugger sword. I've got to remember the Die Rugger lingo. The title is Die Rugger Fighting Formation On: An Introduction to Armored Fleet Die Rugger 15 and Vehicle Team Voltron. Last year at VoltCon 2021, we covered Vehicle Team Voltron exclusively with very little said about Die Rugger. And I have to say that when I began drafting this presentation, I was planning to do just the opposite and focus almost exclusively on Die Rugger to avoid any repetition. But when we had our conversation with Kevin and Patrick and Savannah, and he introduced the Die Rugger panel as comparing and contrasting with Voltron, I thought, well, maybe I should make sure that that's covered. So with thanks to that recording and that amazing description, I thought I'd make the presentation actually match the description. So, so that's what's going on. Yeah. So there we are with the cover slide. And basically the focus is going to be more on Die Rugger than on Voltron. However, I decided to take a sort of split screen view. You know how in Voltron, when you see multiple pilots talking with each other, they often cut to a sort of a split screen. Well, there's going to be an approach kind of like that in this presentation. I don't want to.
I like that.
Yeah, I don't want to go too much into it here, but this is an example of that. So here's the premise slide. So the left is the Die Rugger side of the house, and on the right is the Voltron side of the house. So we'll be able to compare and contrast each characteristic of the shows simultaneously. Yeah, so this is just one example, and we go into.
We don't want to give away too much on this, right?
That's right. So this is the premise slide for our listeners, and I apologize if I neglect to speak to these things directly because we're able to see this stuff on video. I'm trying to be cognizant of the audio only nature of the podcast,
right,
as it usually goes out. So basically, on the left, there's an image in the center of the slide, and off to the left, with the Die Rugger logo in the upper left corner, is the Die Rugger content relevant to the slide, and on the right hand side with the Voltron logo is the Voltron content. So most of the presentation will follow that basic format, and then the things that are particular to one show or another that are just not relevant to the other show, they'll get their own dedicated slides. So that's basically it. All right, so yeah, so that's what the Die Rugger panel will be about in a nutshell. And then, of course, I will be interviewing Steve Sterling, who was one of the two producers on Voltron Defender of the Universe back in the 80s. The other being Franklin Kofod, who has been on the podcast multiple times and who appeared as a guest at the very first VoltCon in 2019. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be very interesting to get Steve's perspective on his involvement with the show relative to Franklin's. We've heard Franklin's side of the story on the podcast, and of course at VoltCons. It's going to be really interesting. They have very different backgrounds professionally, and I look forward to learning how he got on the show, given his very different career path. It's going to be very interesting to see what he brought that was unique to Voltron versus what Franklin brought. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Right. One of the things that we did hear is that he's still working, and that they were last heard to be working on the hologram for Whitney Houston.
That is really interesting, and holographic recreations of performers. The very concept is very interesting to discuss, and of course, many people have strong opinions about those kinds of things as well. So that'll be that's a very interesting project to be working on. I remember when the Michael Jackson hologram was introduced some time back. Did you see any of the video of that at all?
I didn't see that one. I saw Prince.
Okay, I didn't know they had done Prince. Okay,
yeah, they had done Prince, and I think they had also done Tupac at one point.
Wow, huh? It's uncanny how realistic and yet slightly off they seem. But for obvious reasons. But yeah, so Steve has a very interesting career, and it will be very fascinating to hear his recollections of what he did on Voltron. So
Right.
yeah.
So in addition to our little VoltCon 2022 preview, we also in this episode wanted to talk about a very important release of a Voltron piece of merchandise.
Yes, I've
Yeah.
seen much in social media about this.
So
I haven't seen one in my house because I don't own one myself, but I understand that someone on this podcast does.
yes.
Oh, wow.
So we are talking about
We're not worthy.
we are talking about the Blitzway 5 Pro Carbonics Voltron.
My goodness.
Okay.
That's one heck of a little booklet. So Mark just held up the instructions and a little booklet that was bundled with the item. So pretty
Right.
nice. So what do you think of this thing?
So here's the first page of the manual, which shows you all the parts that you're getting.
That's a lot of parts.
That's a lot of parts, right? So you have
Wow.
you have these acrylic stands that the lions go on, and then there's a base that the acrylic stands go on, and there's two different configurations for those acrylic stands for the base, one in
Mhm.
lion form and one in Voltron form. And of course, you've got the 5 lions, and each of these lions has a miniature pilot inside, but then you also get down here, you see there's 5 standing pilots as well.
My goodness.
And then
that's really amazing.
you get the stickers that go on the lions. You get the blazing sword and the spinning laser blade and the saber.
Nice.
So then,
And it looks like you have lion weapons as well, right?
yeah. So each of the lions has their mouth weapons. Okay, and then they each have weapons that either go on the shoulders or the sides of the arms.
Nice.
Each of them gets their own batteries. The blue lion and the yellow lion get typical watch size batteries.
What do the batteries do for those who don't know?
Oh, they light up the eyes.
Okay, so each of the lions has light up eyes, and
Right.
Voltron additionally has light up eyes on its face.
The
too, right?
Voltron head, yes.
Yeah. Right.
And then, like I said, the blue and the yellow lion have the set of 3 watch batteries pulled together, and then the red and the green lions, because they're smaller, they get this different type of battery that has a special tool that puts it in. And then the black lion head is slightly different, but it's more like the blue and the yellow lion batteries.
Okay.
So the head of Voltron also has 2 faces. Okay, so I wanted to show you the 2 faces. Can you see that?
So again, for our listeners, there is the normal tough Voltron closed mouth face,
Yes.
and the yelling / screaming open mouth face. And
Right.
of course, Voltron from Defender of the Universe and Go Lion never really yell or scream, but there
Yes.
are shots where you see the robot with the open mouth.
And
And how do you have yours displayed, Mark?
so right now, I have it in the Voltron form.
Ah,
Okay.
very nice. Okay.
And I have it standing on the base.
Yeah.
You can see it goes like this.
Yeah. So again, speaking for the benefit of our audio only audience, Voltron, the stand looks like Voltron's chest logo with the shoulder panels that's on each side, but it's all black. It's large, very, very well sculpted and detailed.
Yeah.
And you can use the base in a variety of ways that I'm sure Mark will mention here. But it's a really nice base. It is slightly reminiscent of the base that the Toynami 30th anniversary version came with, in the sense that it's all black. Wow. So so it looks like the chest insignia comes off, and inside are all the lion weapons and some of Voltron's weapons as well.
And the faces are also supposed to go in there. And the
Very
cool
nice.
thing is, each of these corners of the base where the plate goes on top,
Yeah.
It's
Uh-huh.
magnetic.
Nice.
It's magnetic. So this sticks right on and
Okay.
stays.
That's nice.
Okay.
So I couldn't tell in when you held up the robot, which face are you using right now?
So I'm using the open mouth face.
Okay, now that number one, it looks really nice. Number two, I know a lot of people who have been reviewing this online have been using closed mouth face, but I think this is very appropriate for Mark with his podcast role. Now he's got Voltron standing right by the microphone, so I think he's about to not say something into the microphone. So how tall is this thing? Like 16
right.
inches, something like that?
Yes. So if you want to talk about how tall it is just from head to foot,
Yeah.
that's how tall it is. But then if
Okay.
you want to talk about how tall it gets with the tip of the sword, it's
Oh
really
yeah, that
tall.
sword is enormous. Yeah.
Yeah.
So height-wise, yeah, so height-wise it looks similar to me, and again, I don't have one in hand, boohoo, but it looks similar in height to the maybe the Playmates version. Ah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's roughly the same height as the Playmates Legendary Defender
Yes.
robot, huh?
Yes, you can
Okay,
see.
which means it's also similar in height to the Playmates Classic Defender of the Universe version, as
Right.
well as the Lego Voltron. So you could have a really nice display of all of those. And if you had the Matchbox Vehicle Team Voltron or Voltron 1, that would be a good companion for this too.
Yes.
Yeah, looks nice.
So, we've seen many reviews already online, and of
Yeah.
course, this is a review as well because, in my opinion, this is one of the better Voltrons of all time.
Oh, I'd hope so. It's got a
Yeah.
hefty price tag, right? I mean, we're
Right.
at a roughly 700 US dollars.
Yes.
But I mean, you could see where the money goes. It looks like again, I've not seen it, I've never seen it in person, only online. But based on size, die-cast content, detail, all the features, all the accessories, it looks to be worth the price.
Right. And I wanted to show you the displays that they had at San Diego Comic-Con for Blitzway. It was at the Bandai Namco booth where they had a
Okay.
bunch of different things around the booth. And on the one
Okay.
side was all the Blitzway stuff. So here you go. Here's how
Okay.
it looked in all of the Lions forms. So you can see how each of them is sitting on an acrylic stand that goes in the back side of the lion and then attaches to the base.
Mhm.
And then on each of those acrylics is a strip of color that identifies the lion.
Yeah.
So the only one who's not the same exact color is black because that has a white strip, and that's associated with the streams that you would see when the lions go up and form Voltron.
Yeah, that alone is entirely unique to this release. So basically, it looks like those acrylic parts attached to the black base, and it gives you the impression of those lions flying up, just like you saw in Go Lion or Defender of the Universe, as the lions are streaking up into the sky to combine.
And you can see this is the one in the Voltron form.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And this shows the acrylic pieces are all standing up behind Voltron and showing their colors. And then at the bottom there, they have the pilots. So they're very tiny compared to Voltron himself. But
Sure.
if you were to put those pilots on the top of each lion as they're sitting, it would be like the end of the show.
Yeah, I mean, that's really slick too. And my impression from the figure sizes is that they're still, if you want to be really, strictly speaking, they're still larger than they probably would be if Voltron were real. Wait a minute, it's not real. But they're sizable enough that they look really good next to the robot.
And this is what the whole stand looked like. So it showed you both forms, which means they had to have two of these Blitzway Voltrons on display.
Sure. So
yeah,
that's really impressive.
Cool.
It reminds me of the New York Comic 2016 when Tamashii Nations had the Solar Chogokin version on display, except they had two under this in the same display case, as I recall.
So one thing that's cool is they do a credits at the end of the manual,
Okay.
so you can see the actual creators of this Blitzway Voltron.
Well, that's nice. You don't often see that with collectibles. That's really interesting.
Right, and it goes all the way down into the packaging too, because the box is quite amazing as well.
Huh.
Everything that it's packed in to keep it all together,
Mhm.
and how you take it apart and how you piece things together. I actually took pictures of everything as I started putting it together into the 5 lions together on the acrylic pieces.
Yeah.
And it shows it does take quite a while to put it all together, but it's worth it. It's fun.
So, well, good. So what do you think? So one of the other things, and this is a first in any Voltron collectible, although there's another one on its heels that mimics this feature. The limb lions, red, green, and to a lesser extent blue and yellow, have panels that conceal the legs when they're in their Voltron component modes, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so red and green, both the front and the forward and rear legs are concealed, and on blue and yellow, only the rear legs are concealed.
Right.
But that's very interesting. And they actually fold out of the lion bodies on double hinges,
Yes.
so that they're present on the lions and the legs are extended. They're just behind the legs, basically.
Yes.
That is really impressive.
So I really like this. I mean,
And-
just it's so stable too. Now, here's the thing: when I was putting this together, I could have black lion sitting in just yellow lion, and it could stand on 1 foot. Seriously,
that's a first as well. That's amazing.
it could stand on 1 foot, and then it could easily stand on the 2 feet with no arms, or have the 2 arms and 1 foot. I mean, possibilities are limitless.
That's cool. That's more that can be said for the old Matty Collector 23-inch behemoth, which
and this thing is massively heavy too.
Yeah. So one thing I've noticed that I absolutely love about this is that the Black Lion's tail actually folds up and is stowed completely below the waist rotation joint. So you can rotate Voltron at the waist without the tail getting in the way, which is something that as much as I like the Soul of Chigoken, that to me was a big drawback, is that the tail obstructed the waist swivel. That is really, really slick.
Yeah.
Huh. Nice.
I like that. And just like all the little articulations are really cool too, because you know the feet and the ankles and everything moves however you want it to go.
That's nice. Wow. Well, it seems like they really outdid themselves, and that's a nice piece.
Yeah.
I will admire it from afar, but I very much do admire it.
So like I said, the only problem I have is with the batteries, and that's it's just it takes some effort to get the batteries to work and then to not work. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you want them on, sometimes you don't. I'll probably be keeping it mostly without the batteries, without the lights on.
Yeah. Yeah, and our friend Michael French at Retro Blasting did a really thorough review of this as well on their channel. Strongly encourage our listeners and viewers to check that out if you're interested. He had very, very positive things to say about it as well, and did point out certain things that you know were not grand slams, such as the batteries and the difficulties getting them in and out. But man, that thing looks great.
Right. And I tend to want to put them in the 5 lions setup, because there's not many versions of Voltron where you can have it in the 5 lions setup like that, where they're all going out like they're about to ready to form Voltron.
Oh yeah.
And with the streaks of colors behind it. I mean, that's just amazing.
Yeah. I remember as a child having the Matchbox diecast lions and wishing that I could just have a V-shaped acrylic stain, like a almost like a boomerang with a handle below it, so that I could attach the lions to it and carry them around in formation. If you're just one kid with the 5 lions, it's a little tough to make them all fly in formation. So your display stand lets you do that as a grown-up. That's nice. As a grown-up kid.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really nice. Well, I'm impressed.
So-
Thanks for showing that off and describing it here.
So the nice thing is for the room that I have this in, now I have in one corner of the room the Blitzway Voltron, and then in the other corner of the room I have the Sideshow Voltron statue. So
oh yeah, you got those fancy ones.
yeah,
Nice.
so the
I
room
got a
looks
lot of
really nice now.
That's nice. I have a lot of Voltron collectibles, but I do not have either of those, and those are both very, very impressive. I remember seeing the Sideshow piece when I last visited you, and my goodness, that thing's beautiful. And that piece looks really nice too. So kudos to you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, congrats. That's cool. I will say this about every Voltron that's been released. There's one feature that I genuinely wish at least one version would have. I wish they would make the spinning laser blade or the spin cutter as they call it in Go Lion. I wish they would make it so the lions could hold it like a throwing disc. You know, like have one of the blade points on the perimeter, 1 or 2 of them be removable, or maybe you could fold them underneath so that Voltron could hold it like the throwing disc, which he always does in the anime. That looks, I love that. Is that 2-sided? It looks nice on both sides, huh?
Yeah.
That's gorgeous. Many of the toys are only 1-sided, so they're very hollow in the back, but that is detailed on both sides.
So that that blue part that you see right here,
Yeah,
that blue part is the one that goes in the lion's mouth.
right. So it's held like a shield, like most of the toys do,
Right.
which is great. I mean, that's nice. I just wish there were an option, whether that is a second blade missing a couple of points or have a couple of points be removable. It would be really nice to have Voltron able to hold that like a throwing disc. And that is no fault of this specific item. It's just not a feature that anyone's done before. Man, that's beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, to our listeners, I apologize. I'm drooling figuratively as I admire the video footage of that. That's really slick.
Yeah.
Nice.
So for anybody who hasn't had a chance to get one yet, try and get one if you can. I definitely recommend it. I know the price is steep, but I think it's well worth it. I think over time that's going to be a really good value.
Yeah, and I do not have this on authority. I do not know for sure. All I can say is that in social media, I have read buzz that Blitzway and Carbonics does not generally do re-releases. So the Soul of Chogokin has now had 3 releases for the Go Lion and 2 for Die Rugger. I don't know that that's going to happen with this. Again, nothing official. I don't know. I have no inside knowledge, but that's what I've heard rumblings of among collectors on social media. So
I can tell you this: the booth where they had the Blitzway Voltron at the Bandai Namco booth, they had brought only a certain amount to sell there, and they easily sold them out. And they could have brought more, way more, and they still would have sold out.
That's amazing. And those Soul of Trigokins, the first couple releases of the GX71 Go Lion sold extremely quickly as well when they were released. So yeah, it's a nice piece.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah. So of course we have another Voltron coming up, you know, the 3-0 Voltron.
Yeah, and that's the one that I kind of alluded to earlier. On its heels, this thing looks like it'll be roughly the size of the Soul of Chogokin, and it looks like it will mimic the leg concealing feature that Blitzway seemingly pioneered. So it looks like a really nice piece too.
Yep. So that's another one that people can look forward to, and of course we don't know what's down the road for Voltron, but we hope there's lots more merchandise to come.
Yeah, I have seen, and I'm not going to get into specifics, but I have seen some images online that seem to tease some future super deformed items.
Right, for both Die Rugger
and
and
I
Lion
won't get
Force.
what
For
was that?
both the Vehicle Force and the Lion Force. I've
Right.
seen
So
images for
I
both.
don't know anything officially about that, but yeah, they look like teasers that were shown off at some kind of a show or convention. So
Right.
it amazes me how much merchandise is coming out in such a short time. It
Yep.
blows my mind.
Yes.
But it's an exciting time to be a Voltron fan and collector. So, Mark, thank you so much for showing off the
No problem.
Blitzway Carbotics 5 Pro Voltron. That's a mouthful, and it looks like that robot is a tabletop full too.
Oh yes. Oh yes. And quite heavy, like I said. And I felt honored to be able to share this with you.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to have gotten this preview from you. You do not partake in the collectibles to the extent that some Voltron collectors do. And so when you choose to take the plunge, you definitely put your thought into it. And it looks like you definitely made a wise purchase decision. That's really cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
So we're very happy with it. And of course, you know, it's always enjoyable to talk about new Voltron things. So
oh gosh,
I
yes.
enjoy that too.
Yeah. So you'll have to have the sideshow Voltron and the Blitzway Voltron, get together for some tea or something.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So that's going to do it for this podcast. We talked to both Shannon and Greg, and we talked about VoltCon, we talked about San Diego Comic-Con, and we talked about the Blitzway Voltron. And we're looking forward to getting back to doing some of those Voltron Force reviews, episode reviews. So we're looking forward to getting back to that as well. But right now we're in full VoltCon preparation mode, right?
That is absolutely right.
So hopefully as soon as VoltCon is over, we'll get back to those episode reviews, and we'll keep on talking about Voltron.
Yeah, and interviews, of course, as opportunities arise. They're a little scarce lately because we're in between Voltron productions, as we all know. But those will pop up as we have opportunities for those too. So,
okay.
All right.
So as I always close, that'll do it for us, and we'll see you all next time on
Let's Voltron.